And just like that, we are live on the internet with Rich Specht Jr. the second.
Junior the second. Is
Yeah.
that like the fourth?
Yeah, I guess. Or I guess that'd be the third, probably, right?
Oh yeah, that would be the third, right? Because it's the second junior.
That's second junior. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You could have done that if you didn't want your kid to be like the third because you thought that was too pretentious.
Junior.
Yeah, you could be junior. Yeah.
It's Richard Specht Jr. or Richard Specht Jr. the Junior squared. Junior the second. Well, it couldn't be Junior squared. Wouldn't work.
No, the second. Yeah, Junior Part 2. Junior version 2. 2.0.
Yeah. No. Even if I had to do it all over again, I don't think I would do that. So.
You already named him Respect, so there's that.
Well, it wasn't on purpose.
You know, I told somebody I was talking about you, and I talked about him, and I was like, "Yeah, Respect." I said, which he didn't do on purpose. I promise. It worked out that way.
Yeah, it's amazing how many it comes. If I don't give context to it, though, it comes up more often than you would think. Where people are like, "Really, you named your kid Reese?" You're like, "No, I didn't. Not at all."
You need to let Princess Diana out.
No, she's okay. She heard my wife going down the stairs, so now she's just eyeing the door. But I'm gonna leave her there because otherwise she'll be back at the door scratching to get back in. So
okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna leave Princess Diana right there. She'll just stare at the door anyhow. She's a weirdo. So.
No, nothing. All right.
Oh, there she is.
There you go. Yeah, I'm good.
There she's looking. So she's a good dog. And Buffy, the Chew Toy Slayer, is coming along too as a new addition to our household. So
I didn't know about Buffy.
Oh yeah, we got a new dog.
No, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, she's a rescue. She's about 2.5 years old. She's a Basenji Border Collie mix. Very sweet, but she had some anxiety issues. We were a little concerned about them, but we had a dog trainer come. She's actually my girlfriend. That's good. My daughter's boyfriend's father is a professional dog trainer.
Okay.
So he actually came over. It was the first time we met, and came over and helped us to work with her and train her. And at first he was a little concerned, but those concerns have since abated, and she's been great. So.
And don't worry, no one watches this but us. How's the daughter's boyfriend's father? Was he
nice guy. He's a really nice guy.
Nice guy, yeah.
I feel like I now have to qualify that too. Like, oh, my daughter's boyfriend's father. He's a really nice guy.
Nice guy. Well, like your brother-in-law. They should hang out.
Yeah, really nice guy. Really nice guy.
You're stepfather. You're not stepfather, I guess.
I still don't know what to call him. My mom's husband.
I believe that's your stepfather, Rich. I don't know how to tell you this.
I just don't like that. Feels so weird. My mom does not refer to him as my stepfather, so I don't know. It just feels alien. Is that an age thing though? Like, I'm wondering, is it because I'm just older and I just won't? I don't.
Yeah, it's not like he's not bothering you.
No, but the girls do. I have to say this, especially Melina, because he's always been a part of her life. Like, Melina sees him as like a grandfather.
I mean, he is.
Yeah. So
I mean, I had a grandmother that was my grandfather's second wife, and I considered her a grandmother.
Yeah. So she sees Barry, who she calls Grumpy. She sees him as like her grandfather. So, but
do they have a good relationship?
They do. He's very sweet with her. He's really sweet with my girls. So he's a really nice guy.
How long have they been together?
Over 10 years. I mean, I think when Reese had passed, my mom and he had just started dating. And yeah, it was right around that time they had just started dating. So, and that was 10 years ago. So they've been together 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's a really nice guy.
Nice guy. Okay. I met him. He was nice.
And yeah, you did. That's true. You did meet him. And Alan, who is my daughter's boyfriend, his parents are wonderful people, and It's honestly, I have to say, and this isn't just me being, I'm not putting out false platitudes here.
Diplomatic.
They are really nice people to hang out with. It's nice to have people you can talk to and not feel like you're not struggling to talk and share things. And I often have that issue. So it was just nice to, very down to earth and open. He's a former cop, so I kind of related on that kind of avenue from his experience, and my dad being a cop. So yeah, it's been really nice. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I feel like I'm bad at talking to. It's weird. Like I'm good at talking to strangers for like a minute, right? And I'm real good at talking to people that I know really well. In fact, I think people that know me really well are like, he doesn't shut up. Like he just keeps talking.
I get that too.
Like yeah, but people who I know a little bit, I have a real hard time with.
I what? I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I have that same issue. It's that in between area that I do not thrive in.
Yeah, I have a hard time with this.
I almost over talk though, even with people I don't know, because I feel like I have to fill dead space. So like when I go to a school and I'm speaking to the people there, I feel like I have to say too much because I don't know like where that in between is supposed to be. But then if it's people I kind of know, I really struggle.
Well, I'm good at talking to random strangers. Like, I don't have whatever hesitation regular people have with this. So like in an elevator, I'll be the one to like, make a joke about whatever, like, to people I don't know. In fact, I had a girlfriend once. She said, I really, it's really cool how you're able to like talk to people you don't know randomly and in public. She's like, I can't do that. I said, well, there's two things. One, it's not an existential threat to me to talk to random men in public like it is for you. You're a 5 foot tall, 100-pound girl. So like if you randomly chatted up some dude in an elevator, that could go poorly for you, and I don't have that issue. And yeah, so that's probably that actually that's the main issue. But yeah, and like I think I kind of stand out anyways all the time, so it's not. I don't feel like I'm drawing attention to myself. Like that's already happening.
I mean, I have that to some extent. I'm a big guy, so people see me coming, and if I'm doing shows, I'm usually the center of attention. So and people want to talk to you, and so I find what happens with me though is that when people come up to me when they know all about me and I know nothing about them,
that's weird,
and they'll talk to me knowing stuff about me, and I'm like, okay, I'm at a disadvantage here. So that's always a little weird for me.
And not only do they know about you, I mean, because of the context of your relationship with them, like they know like the worst things that ever happened to you,
right.
know, and and their hair color. Like it's
exactly.
Maybe
or actually, you know what I actually find even worse? It's people who tangentially know me because they are the parents of students I've had or the friends of friends that I have. And so that makes it to me even more difficult because now I have to say, first of all, if it's the parent of a student, I have to remember the student. And I don't always remember them. I often do, which I'm thankful that I do, but not always. I've always been better with faces than names. So when a parent throws out a name, I'm like, when did I have them? Every once in a while, though, I'll nail it though, and I'll know exactly how old they were, and the parents are like, oh my god, you remember? But yeah, I have difficulty in those situations because I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to say or how much I should say, and don't want to give away that I don't remember everything. So I try to be general, and yeah. So, but
like, oh yeah, that's right. I taught them science. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, science.
Well, yeah. This happened. The last show I did, someone came up to me and like, "Oh, you taught my daughter," and up there she goes.
Told you.
Because she hears the other dog. The other dog is literally on the other side of the door. So, and I can hear Samantha. Hi, Sam. Oh no. Okay. I thought I heard Samantha, but I mean. This is the danger of going live. Well, she was going to be on the other side and scratching the door. I can let her out, and then she's going to scratch. So,
you want to test the hypothesis?
No. because I know what's going to happen.
Okay.
And then she'll scratch the paint off the other side of my door. At least this side, it'll be consistent. So,
All right, fair enough.
yeah. But speaking of talking to people that you don't know, do you find that you run into that when you're online? Do you talk to people you don't know online?
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, for work, I have to, right? It's part of my job.
What if it was unsolicited, and you were, just happened to be somewhere, and someone just unsolicited, started chatting you up?
I get these messages on Facebook often, and I ignore them because they're obviously scams.
Of course, you were an adult and you recognize these scams,
right? But if I was a child, it might be harder.
Exactly. So, how was it? Was that a good segue?
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself on that one. So we wanted to talk a little bit about internet safety today because, again, usually something that comes up that we talk about has to do with something that's just happened in my life. So, and I've had two separate instances, one dealing with my child, and it's tangentially internet safety. It had something to do with YouTube, which I'll come back to. And then another talking about scams. I think after having shared with you this morning what I thought might have been a scam involving a grant writing process that I've been going through.
Yeah, do you feel comfortable sharing that story, or at least the highlights of it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm comfortable sharing it. So we hired a grant writer to help us secure some grants because that's an area of funding I've never looked into for the foundation, which honestly I should have probably looked into 10 years ago as opposed to right now. But hey, you live and learn. And we did it through Fiverr, which I've had good success with doing other stuff. And this is actually the second grant writer that I hired there. The first one was terrible. Did a proposal for us that was literally a 3-year-old could have written better. I actually put it into Chat GPT, and Chat GPT actually spit out something much better. So go figure. But I found this other one, and we hired her, and we were very happy with her. And you being on the board, I shared with you some of the stuff that she did, and it was really top notch. And I continued to hire her for different things, and each thing that she did successfully, I was equally or even more impressed with. So we've gotten to the point where we're doing the applications, and I'm now working with her outside of Fiverr, which kind of also makes sense. Like I had felt like I developed a relationship with this person enough that, okay, let's just, you can basically become almost like a vendor for the foundation. And so she's been doing these applications for us. And last night asked me for login information for something that I just wasn't comfortable sharing, at least not yet. I don't think ever I would be in this case for what she was looking for. And I kind of freaked out. And in my head, this whole convoluted scheme started to form in my head. Like, what? Oh my God, this person's like a 3-dimensional chess mastermind and basically did all of this stuff to get to this point, right? To get my information.
And they'd already gotten some information from you already.
Yes, they already did get some information, which if they wanted to try and hurt me, I guess they could. Well, they would be able to if I didn't have protections in place already. So I don't think I would have been comfortable sharing that stuff if I didn't have protections like that in place. So which I did. So I have all the identity theft stuff. We use Aura, which is great.
I'm gonna have to sign up for that. I didn't know about it.
Aura's it really is fantastic. It's there's another one, LifeLock, but Aura's better. I used LifeLock a couple years ago. I wasn't as happy with it. But Aura's really great. And anytime something pops up, it lets you know. Like, it let me know that my passwords were compromised. And it told me what my passwords were. I'm like, oh, crap. And I had some pretty unique passwords that, you would have never guessed. And they would just...
Yeah, like what? No, I'm kidding. Don't.
I mean, they're out there, but no, I'm not going to give it away anyhow. So, yeah, it really is fantastic. So I wasn't as concerned about that because I'm like, they're not really going to get anything. But the thing that she wanted the login information for would have opened me up to making that possible, potentially. And I had to, in my head, I jumped right to the worst conclusion, I think. And then I kind of went down that rabbit hole. And then upon talking to my wife this morning, I think we realized that it was it was really just ignorance. And I think I'm guessing that she had another client that had no problem doing it, not thinking of it. Because my wife even said to me, she's like, I would have done it. I wouldn't even thought twice.
There you go.
And she's like, and you know more about this stuff, so you saw the issue. And I was like, yeah, I did. And it scared me. And then I kind of maybe overreacted a little bit, but I think that's part of the world we live in, right? Like, I don't know. I don't trust things. And even when people give me reason to trust them, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been burnt a couple times that I feel like, when's the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah, it's weird that every time you and I meet in person that you have to cavity search me.
Well, there you go. Right.
Yeah,
So
I enjoy it, but it's weird.
I am weird like that. So yeah. And needless to say, it was decided that, and she was very reasonable this morning after getting all my crazy texts last night that I was freaking out and that I hadn't heard back from her, and I was seriously considering reaching out to the authorities, which maybe was a slight overreaction on my part. That she offered a reasonable compromise, which was for me to apply to things, and she'll direct me through it if I really felt that uncomfortable. And my wife and you both pointed out to me, well, she's got the other stuff anyhow, so why does it matter? And so I universally agreed with you guys that, yeah, it really shouldn't matter, doesn't matter. And she's done a great job so far. And hopefully I get some of these grants, which would be really fantastic.
Yep.
So, yeah, but it really got me thinking about internet security and safety, which has often been a big deal for me. Like, I think I've stressed it more, and I've tried to stress it with my daughters. My older daughters, interestingly enough, they have had the belief, and rightfully so, that I'm like the internet overlord of the house, and that I have seen everything that they go on and that I know what they're doing, which, by the way, I do. So I find it interesting now with my 8-year-old. This is, I think, a universal truth. When I speak to parents, I find this universally, where you kind of let each kid get away with more and more successfully. So my oldest, who just graduated high school, oh my God, I didn't let her get away with anything. Whereas I gave a little more slack to Lorelai, and now with Melina, oh my God, and they get mad at us because you let her have a TV in our room. We couldn't have a TV in our room, and I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, you put YouTube on that, and I'm like, yeah. Now originally it was just YouTube Kids. I'm like, YouTube's fine. Well, the other day I get a message from my middle daughter, and she's like, Daddy, you need to see this. And I'm like, what? And she shows me. Now, Melina has been, I think I spoke last week about how she grew in her reading and everything, which has been great because, her reading skills weren't where they were supposed to be. But she often will feign with us that she still can't read or write, and especially when it requires her doing any type of effort involved in it. So I think I really underestimated how proficient she was in reading and writing, because my daughter shared with me her search history on YouTube, which she happened to see. And let's just say, I think it was something that was inspired by my daughter recognizing her oldest sister now in a relationship with a boy and wondering what happens in that relationship. So she was searching some of that stuff up. And
on YouTube, not Google?
On YouTube, yeah. Well, because she doesn't have a PD or anything that she can access, so it's just on the TV. So she searched that on YouTube, and apparently found some videos that were probably a little unsavory for an 8-year-old.
Were they educational at least?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because there is a wealth of biological and anatomical and very useful educational material on YouTube.
I agree, but I think what happened was I then realized upon hearing this and going, oh my God, I really haven't checked anything with her because I didn't feel like I needed to, right? Because I'm like, she's not at that point. Like with my daughters, I did. I mean, my daughters are right in knowing that, yeah, I knew everything that they were doing. And I didn't feel, I told them it's not a violation of your privacy because you live under my roof. And so your big brother will be watching. So just know that he will be. And I didn't with Melina. So the fact that her sister is the one who caught her, which got her mad. but the look on her face when I went into her room, she was like, "Oh my God, here it comes. He's going to yell at me. He's going to get mad." And when I gave her the absolute opposite reaction of that, the look of surprise on her face when I walked in her room, and she's like, "I know." And I'm like, "What do you know?" She's like, "I was looking at things I shouldn't have been looking at." And I said, "And you know, and I just don't want you to do it again. If you have questions about things, you should ask mommy and daddy first. And if you think that something you're doing is inappropriate, then ask us and we'll let you know first." And she's like, "Am I in trouble?" I'm like, "No more than what I just said to you." And the look of like awe on her face that I didn't freak out. And then she went to go speak to my wife, Samantha, and Samantha, independently of me, we hadn't talked about this, said exactly the same things. So she walked away. Now, does that mean I kept YouTube on her TV? Nope. I immediately it removed YouTube. So she's kind of got to earn that back. She's got YouTube Kids, which is filtered, but there's some weird stuff on YouTube Kids too, but it wouldn't be the stuff that she was looking up here. And took it off.
And it also, you knew the intent, right? I mean, she's 8, so it's not like she's trying to like, it wasn't for entertainment, we'll call it.
Right.
She was, trying to learn. It was just, fair.
Yeah. And this is my third, child, right? So I caught myself. It's really my 4th child. But there's the 3 in the house, right? The 3 living kids. And it's a big age gap. It's 10 years with her and Abby and 8 years with Lori. So I find that she tries to grow up a little too fast. And now I feel like there's a new challenge for us when it comes to internet safety. Like, wow, maybe I have to consider things I never did with the older 2. And the older 2, I think, were so close in age that they kind of self-policed each other too. Like, "Oh, Dad, no, you can't do that." So, and it's funny when I would, talk to each girl individually when they would be like, "Well, I'm like, "I know you did." They're like, "But you never said anything." I'm like, "Why would I?" And I think they were as surprised by that as Melina was as to my reaction. And I think that's a personal parenting choice. I don't think me coming down hard on her would have made the situation any better. I think it would have made it worse. I'm trying to avoid instilling any type of rebellious behavior. I wanted to have faith in us and what we're doing, but it's weird. It made me think about things I never thought I had to think about with an 8-year-old. And I definitely feel like the kids are growing up a lot faster. And I'm just speaking from my own experience from having one kid that was 10 years older and having grown up really in a different world too. Like that 10 years made a big difference. So Abby did not grow up with the same things that Melina had. I mean, Abby grew up with TV, watching TV. Like she would watch TV, like the Disney Channel. And she was beholden to the episodes that were on the Disney Channel at specific times.
Right. You had to watch, you catch it at 3:30,
Right. And Melina, that's alien to her.
Right.
No, she watches what she wants to watch when she wants to watch it.
Yeah.
And it's so weird how that's all changed. And kind of just how prolific phones and screen devices are. Like we had an iPad for the girls, but they were older. Like I think the first iPad they ever had was when they were around 9 or 10. So so it's a different world. So it's definitely something to consider, and it's something that I always talk about ignorance, and you don't know what you don't know until you find out. So, and here I was with that, and just find it interesting that I had 2 internet safety things kind of pop up independently of each other for totally different reasons, but still something to always keep in mind. And one thing I wanted to get your take on this. When I was looking at my internet safety setup for Aura, there's an option to protect your kids. And I'm like, do I really need that? Like, and by protect your kids, it's not like protect them from, going on to sites. It's literally protect them from being their identity stolen.
Right.
And I'm like, do I really? But maybe I do. I don't know. Do you think that? I mean, for Abby, yes, she's 18. I mean, now she can. But
right, I would say for her even more than you. I mean, not only is she 18, but she doesn't have the self-awareness. She's more likely to get caught, or more likely to get scammed, right? because she's young and has less experience. And I was going to jokingly say, and because she's a girl, but no, I was afraid people would think I was being serious.
Honestly, though, I think that is more of an issue for girls than it is guys.
How dare you? First of all,
but I think it is. I think girls are much more likely to be victimized online than a boy is.
For a lot of reasons,
And I think that's just a kind of function of just how the sexes are kind of how they are in general. And I don't mean that as a sexist thing. I just mean it as a biological thing. I don't trust guys, so I just don't. But
I don't know. But
apparently, I don't trust anybody though, because someone who's trying to do work for us.
You want? So here, you have daughters, and
yes, I do.
Yeah, I vowed in 2016, something like that, 2015, somewhere around there, to not get in arguments on Facebook anymore. Like I made it my New Year's resolution, and I stopped, and I haven't since. I really very rarely not like I used to. I used to be in a constant, ongoing debate about everything. Like it was politics and and it was forever, right? Yeah. And I would post the kinds of things that would create these arguments too, right? It was a chunk of my life, and I was like, no, not doing it anymore. It's not useful. It's not a good use of my time. It's hurting my relationships. So I stopped. But I somewhat inadvertently dipped my toe into a debate like a couple weeks ago, and eventually someone said, "Well, you don't have daughters. You don't know." And I was like, "Well, I don't think that changes anything, but whatever." Which I think that I always think that's like a cop out, when someone's like, if you had a daughter, you would think about it. So, and it's not internet safety, but it's in the ballpark. So, this acquaintance of mine, her 20-year-old daughter flew for the first time on her own, and she met her girlfriends in Costa Rica, and they were had a trip. While she's in Costa Rica, she meets this dude, Ben, from Sweden. Ben is also traveling, but Ben's on a world tour. He's in Costa Rica now, and in a couple weeks he's going to be in Brazil, and then he's going to be in Colombia. And they headed off. They had a really good time together on this trip to Costa Rica. And the 20-year-old wants to meet him in Colombia. Fly to Colombia, meet him there, and hang out and do Colombian things, whatever that is. See the sights, and whatnot. And the mom's like, obviously, clearly, this is a terrible idea, and I need you to know. I'm looking for advice on how to talk her out of it. Obviously, Colombia is super dangerous, and it's terrible there, and I don't want her going. And this dude, what do we even know about him? And yeah, so help me come up with ways to tell her no without alienating her or whatever. And so I responded. I was like, Colombia's a country. There's 52 million people there, living happily, healthily, and safely for the most part. People from America and Europe, fly there as tourists every single day. The majority of them have no issues whatsoever, and the guy, she's met him. She's hung out with him for a few days.
Right.
He's far safer than some dude she's gonna meet on Tinder. Who's a real stranger. And she could just, it's dangerous driving to work. You get hit by a car, and so I was like, I think you should, encourage her and talk about ways she can be more safe. Maybe bring a friend. What can she do to mitigate her risk? But I, instead of being like, how do I talk her out of it? I'd be, she, how many times do you get an opportunity to travel to Colombia by yourself at 20 years? Right. That's you only get to do these things when you're her age, and and what a great experience for her to have gone through. So yeah, I took that side of it, and I got tons of heat. People like, oh, you don't know, you haven't seen these TV shows where people get sex trafficked, and I'm like, yeah, but they don't make TV shows about all the positive outcomes, because there'd be millions of those.
Right.
If they made a television show for every time, the vacation went well, that'd be everything on TV. It'd take you the rest of your life to watch all those. You only get to hear the horror stories because they're so rare. Um, so yeah, eventually the debate was reduced to like, well, do you have a daughter? I was like, no, but I don't think that changes my outcome. It would. If you had a daughter, you would realize, you would change your perspective and you'd understand. I was like, all right, well, there's
So
other people.
now the question for me, right? What would I do?
And I was like, other people are in this thread, by the way, who have daughters, and they seem to agree with me. But whatever. So yeah, so you have not just one but three daughters. You're three times as qualified if you go by this metric. Um, if the number of daughters is how smart you are about this, then you're triple. So as a almost 20-year-old daughter owner, um, what are your thoughts on if Abby was like, I met a dude, we hung out for a week in Costa Rica, and now he's going to be in Colombia, and I want to meet him there, and go on a trip. What would be your thoughts?
So my protective dad side would immediately kick in and be like, "What do you know about the guy?
Right.
I want to know more about him." And
Mm-hmm.
my inclination is that I would, like that parent was asking how to talk her out of it.
Right.
I would take more of the approach of how would I talk her through it.
Right.
Because first of all, she's 20 years old. I know my daughter's 18. Like, at some point, I mean, birds kick their fledglings out of the nest, right? So they learn how to fly. And it seems pretty harsh, right? Like, oh my God, you're going to kick a flightless animal out of a tree. But it works, right? But sometimes, by the way, they kick them out and they die. And that's not me saying, by the way, that, sometimes you got to just let your kid go to Costa Rica and die. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that you do have to live your life. Risk mitigation is a part of being a parent. You're right. You can risk mitigate to the point where you don't do anything, which I find ironic considering that whole sentiment was brought up this past week with what happened with the Titan Explorer that sank because the CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush, was quoted as saying that at some point safety measures are ridiculous. And I believe the press kind of took that out of context. I see what he was saying. I do believe that he was a little too flippant in his.
Yeah. That comment didn't age well.
It did not age well at all.
No. By the way, I would like to hear your thoughts on the submersible too, but we can get back to that.
We'll get back to that. Okay. But I tend to agree with that sentiment that there's only so much you can mitigate in life. And the risk reward thing, I don't know. I would discuss it with my daughter. I don't think I would be I wouldn't make it open shut no. My inclination is for her not to go because I don't know. Like it's a variable that I can't control. But at some point, also I feel like I have to trust my child because they're becoming an adult too. I mean, they are an adult. They're 20 years old. That's an adult. I would discuss it with her, not to her, and I don't think a unilateral decision will work anyhow. I think if you told her flat out no and they're 20 years old, they're going to find a way to do it, and then you have nothing. Yeah. They may make even worse decisions. And I think that's something to consider. And I think that's part of the paradox of being a parent. And that would be a tough one for me. I don't think I would unilaterally say no. I think I'd have an inclination to say I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think you should do it. I think maybe you should consider other options because I would consider the climate in Colombia. There are issues there. And there's different considerations to consider if you're an American versus a European. They are seen differently as a valued target in certain places. But no, I wouldn't unilaterally say no. I wouldn't also unilaterally say yes, though, either. It would be something I would have to discuss with my daughter and kind of work my way through it. So, if you had to, brass tacks and I had to give you a definitive answer, yes or no, I think I would lean towards yes. I think, if I did the risk reward, I would be like, okay, Because if I'm playing the odds are nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
We
And
tend
the and the potential for learning and experiences and everything, it seems it's high, right?
Yeah. And here's my thing. If you change the age and these were two 40-year-olds, would you think anything of it? I don't think
No.
so.
And the risk is the same.
Right. And the risk is the same. So therefore, I have to look at what variables I'm putting into my decision process versus what the actual reality is of the decision itself. So using that as my metric, then I would say my answer would be yes. See? Science.
Science. So let's talk about submersible.
Yeah, the submersible.
I don't know why I didn't lead with this. We totally forgot this. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I have to say this: the second I read about it on Father's Day, that it's gone missing, my daughter Lori is like, "Dad, you are so clinical sometimes." I looked at her, I'm like, "They're dead." I was like, "They're dead." It was, and I told them, I said, "The damn thing imploded. They are pink mush, and they're not going to find anything. No remains, at least not identifiable remains."
Right.
And then a couple days later, they said they heard banging, and I'm like, "Yeah, well, they heard banging when they were looking for the Malaysian flight too, and there's banging along the seafloor." So I don't put any stock into that. And then of course they found the wreckage, and I'm like, "Yep, predictable." The stuff I read about the actual submersible and stuff about people who threw up red flags about it.
Yeah, have you been following James Cameron's commentary?
Yeah, I feel like James Cameron's commentary though comes across as kind of, shutting the door after the barn door after the horses have already fled. I don't know how vocal he was in talking about this guy. I mean, it's easy to say it now. Hindsight's always 2020. I think, Stockton Rush goes down as one of those inventors who thought that, that was like Icarus, man. He flew too close to the sun. Developed a questionable technology that experts said you shouldn't do, and he thought he knew better. I personally, knowing the difference structurally between what carbon fiber will do under pressure versus a metal, knowing that metals are malleable and will handle pressure differently than something that is rigid. I think the fears that experts had for the design of that sub were founded, and I think it was kind of inventors' hubris that I've got it. So, and I think he definitely, for each successive dive, had survivor's bias. Oh, see, it worked, so it's going to work. And I think precisely what the people who foresaw this as an issue knew would happen is that you were going to get stress fractures, and eventually the number would be up, and it was. But I saw I was watching, it was something on YouTube. It was a physicist who actually calculated at that depth how quickly the implosion would occur. 1/20th of a second. So I find it interesting. I said this to my daughters. We literally went from a place where we thought these people were going through a living hell, like the worst way to die, to probably, if I had to choose a way to go, instantaneous death in 1/20th of a second. Sign me up. They literally would have had no idea that anything even happened. They couldn't have reacted. They wouldn't have even known.
So it implodes at 1/20th, but I mean, are they immediately crushed? Do they drown? I guess it happens fast.
No. So there is a great, and it's funny, I saw this after the fact, but now it's been publicized. There was an episode, and I love the Mythbusters. I've seen every episode. I actually went to their live shows. I'm a nerd. There was an episode where they showed the decompression of a diving suit, and that was at 60 feet. And they put a pig carcass inside the diving suit and then explosively, decompressed it. So it had an implosion basically inside. And the pig carcass literally liquefied into pink mush, all into the helmet. It just, the whole pig got sucked up into the helmet and just instantaneous pink mush. And that was at 60 feet. this was literally, you're talking about forces literally 1,000 times greater. They were instantaneously basically mushified.
Yeah.
So, and so yeah, their death would have been absolutely positively instant. They wouldn't even know what hit them. Like 1 second they were probably talking. They may have now what they may have heard is the stress fractures cascading. So there may have been that little terror, like, oh, what's going on? But suffering, they didn't suffer at all. Instantaneous death.
Yeah, sounds not bad.
And then apparently the pieces that they've recovered, they did find effectively liquefied remains in some of the components, which would be, expected if
Right.
yeah. So think Play-Doh Fun Factory. Because that's what happened. They were
Right.
literally Play-Doh Fun Factory into that sub.
Yeah.
And it's sad to think. And you know what I find more interesting in all this is because it was a couple billionaires, the lack of empathy people have for the actual victims. And I find that fascinating. So because they had wealth, they were less worthy of our empathy. And that to me is scary.
Yeah, because this is kind of like eat the rich mentality. Like, oh, they had it coming. They're out there, rich people doing rich people stuff, and this is what you get. And I think it's because we see like bad things happen to those people so rarely that and there's like this jealousy and this anger towards them, and this idea that if you're a billionaire, you're probably a bad person in some way because of it's hard to actually become a billionaire. A lot of people think. I don't know if I agree with that, but that's a belief a lot of people hold. So yeah, I know why, but
I definitely was. I find that fascinating. And I'm not going to condemn anybody for doing it because I think it's kind of natural human reaction to things. I certainly try to dissuade my daughters from speaking of internet safety. What I love that I guess I did this to them. My older daughters have basically no social media presence. They don't post anything. They observe, but they don't post. And I guess that's from me constantly just reiterating things, and maybe through my own experiences too, because I, like you, had that period where I was always debating things on Facebook, and then one day I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Stop doing it. I've been happier ever since. And I think it was right around the time where they were coming into their own and hearing me say it's not worth it, like just, and I think they physically saw the change in me. But they pointed out to me that they were surprised by the number of people posting things about just how flippant they were about how these people died and the conditions under they died and the fact that they were rich and people just doing really bad dad jokes. And I did one too. I'm going to be honest.
Well, I mean, some of the memes were funny. That's what it is. But.
And I said something to my daughter, and it was such a me thing to do. We were in the car, and she asked me about it. She's like, what do you think about all of it? And I shared with her how I was more upset, I think, about how people reacted than, and because my daughter Lori's like, Dad, this is exactly what you said happened. And I was like, Occam's razor, kid. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. And I lamented the fact that people were doing these bad things, saying these things and not really considering these people themselves. And then I did a really bad dad joke. I was like, yeah, I think people have really sunk too low.
Mm.
And she's like, oh, Dad, that was bad. And I'm like, see, I'm just as guilty. But
yeah, that joke really imploded.
However, humor always has a part of it that is rooted in.
I think there's nothing off limits for joking about. Personally, I mean, I
agree. I think I find it interesting that's if this happened like 20 years ago, I think people are joking and no one's pointing fingers like, oh, that you shouldn't do that, or maybe like my grandmother is saying that, but not basically the protectors of free thought, right? Who tell us what we're supposed to think. Ironically, I think I feel for comedians because it's almost like you can't joke about anything because someone will be offended, and my cousin used to always tell me, and I didn't agree with him on a lot of things, but I agree with him wholeheartedly on this. You have the right to be offended. You have the right to be offended. I mean, that's one of the rights that we're granted in this country. You have the right to be offended, and what you do with it's on you. But that doesn't. I don't know, because you're offended doesn't mean that suddenly the other, walk away, tune it out. So again, find that middle ground. I don't know where it is, but yeah.
Daniel Tosh has a bit where he says how everything should be jokeable and anything can be made funny, and he imitates the audience member like, oh, anything, like, really, like, well, you can joke about like rape, rape's off limits, can't joke about rape. And then he goes on to do like this hilarious rape bit. I think it's even like a child rape bit. And it's funny and it's good. And he's like, see, y'all are laughing at child rape. Yeah. Told
Right.
you,
Yeah, I think we can expose the hypocrisy and all that stuff anytime. And I often find, that the idiom "people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones," that applies, right?
And also
People making jokes about other things, but when it affects their sensibilities, then it's an issue. So,
more importantly, people in grass houses shouldn't stow thrones. Very important.
Yeah, that too.
They'll fall through the roof. You don't want to do that.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's my nickel's worth of free advice.
Did you hear that The Simpsons, like everything, predicted this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed by any of that stuff though, because The Simpsons has been on the air for so long.
The volume is so high. Yeah.
The law of averages tells us they're gonna get some stuff. So they're gonna get some stuff. And honestly,
when South Park made an episode about how The Simpsons have already done everything.
Yeah, that's also great. Yeah. I'm actually more impressed by the Simpsons episode where Donald Trump is coming down an escalator announcing his candidacy for president. Like, that to me is eerie, but there's a bunch of them though.
Yeah. I don't like, to me this was very predictable. So I mean, I feel bad. I hadn't heard about it until it actually happened. I hadn't heard about this particular thing, and I'm sure no one would have heard about the safety concerns until, again, after the fact. Although I'm sure the people who posted it, and upon further reading, and I have to say though, the first thing when I was reading, and it was made of carbon fiber, the part of me, I mean, I took material science. I was like, ooh, that seems like an odd choice. Like, great for an airplane, but I don't think I want a pressure vessel that's going underwater under that stress, and then that repetitive stress under that extreme of a difference. That was my first thought. And again, I'm not a material scientist, but I took material science classes, right? So I have some experience. And so when I saw that, and then I saw the interviews with Stockton Rush, I'm like, this is just typical, like, inventor's hubris. I think you see it with Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos with Blue, and their things have had issues, but I think they've been a little bit more adherent to what safety should be, as opposed to basically saying, safety. I've got, these people are idiots. Well, it turns out they weren't. So, and he kind of, paid the price. It made me think of, do you know who Franz Reichelt is?
No.
So Franz Reichelt was, this is like one of the first like faces of death things. In 1912, developed a wearable paraglider, like parachute. He was a tailor, and he had an idea to make like that someone who could just wear this, and basically if they're like falling off of a mountain or out of a plane, because airplanes had just been created, to wear it and survive a great fall. So he actually asked the French government for permission to test it off of the first level of the Eiffel Tower. And it was recorded. And he jumps off in his thing and he just plummets to his death. But another example of kind of that inventor's hubris, like, I invented it, therefore it must work. So just another name added to the list of inventors killed by their own inventions.
A lot of them.
There are. It's actually a pretty fascinating list. So Or maybe in this case, a Darwin Award winner. I don't know. But
Well, in any case,
yeah.
Thank you, Rich, as always.
Well, thank you. I wanted to show you something.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to load up on new things, and my daughter went to the bookstore the other day, and she found this.
Oh, what is that?
It's a book. It's just 1,500 random facts.
Oh.
And I've started reading. Actually, you can see where my bookmark is, where I've gotten to. You know what I find interesting? I've probably known about 90% of them already, which is depressing. But I learned a couple new things. So,
can you tell us one you learned? Something you didn't know before we go? I gotta go.
Do you know what the most ubiquitous instrument on the planet is?
Like musical instrument?
Yeah. And it's not even close. Second place isn't even close.
Like a drum?
Nope. I would have guessed a drum myself.
A harmonica?
You got it. It is a harmonica.
That was actually my first guess. I was like, but you can make anything into a drum. So, but
right. And I was in that same area. I didn't think it would be a string instrument. But yeah, the harmonica is number one. By the way, drums not number two. You know what number two is? A kazoo.
A kazoo. Oh, yeah, makes sense.
So there you go. Random facts.
Thank you.
So now you
know. All right, Rick. You're the best.
Have a great day. Are you guys doing Jeopardy today?
Yes.
I may join you.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, this will be, if we win today, we'll be at 66 in a row.
Holy crap. Yeah, I think
and we've had some close calls.
Squeakers.
Yeah, we've been skimping by. Like we've had to fight for our right to party a few times.
Now, do you get any recognition for that though?
No one knows. I don't know what we need to do to like make this a thing. Like, but
maybe I'll make an award for you.
You should.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try to join you guys at 3:00 today.
3:00. Yep.
All right. I'm gonna try to join. I'll let you know if I can make it. And yeah, I promised myself summer vacation. Everyone's home. I have no commitments right now. I don't have to pick up anyone from school. I'm going to try to join you for Jeopardy.
We'd love to have you.
All right. So then I will hopefully say see you later.
All right. See you later.
Have a great day. And we'll talk to everyone else next week.
Tuesday. Bye. I think we can both eyes.